Hello, Gregg and Nadim with Online Tennis Instruction, and we have a question from a student of ours.
And that question pertains to him struggling with slower balls. Basically, he plays with a variety of players and he likes pace, but he tends to miss time and overhit balls that are softer and slower. So what do you have to focus on here, Gregg?
So Nadim, that's actually a common problem. When the ball comes with pace, it's a lot easier to time that for a variety of reasons. So number one, when the ball comes with pace, usually it comes at a slightly lower trajectory. So in other words, the ball is going to be in your strike zone for a much longer period of time. So if the ball comes through here, it will bounce and then it will stay in your strike zone. When the ball's hit soft and floaty, what happens is, the ball is going to come from a high trajectory. So if this is your strike zone, it's going to drop into your strike zone. It's going to bounce out of your strike zone. It's going to rise back in and then go out. So you've got to be very precise with your timing. The other thing is you get half your pace from your opponent. So when someone hits the ball hard to you, it almost feeds the ego because you can just reflect that ball, the pace back to them. When somebody hits the ball soft, you then left having to generate all the pace. And then thirdly is the length of the hitting zone. So if we look at the best players in the world, one thing we see is they have the longest hitting zone. So meaning, if we look at the width of the shoulders, the strings will go out to the target for a very long period of time. So they're swinging more vertically this way, where most recreational players tend to swing more horizontally. So as you can see, if you're a little bit late, the ball's going to go to the right. If you're a little bit too early, it's going to go left. So that's what happens when you play players that hit with less pace. Often we hit the ball too early. So if we don't have good extension, now the ball's either in the net or we're going to miss wide to our left if you're a right-handed player on the forehand. So key here is to really lengthen the hitting zone. If we take a look over here at Nadim, and through contact, you want to keep the wrist laid back there, and you'll see how the racket hits the outside of his hand. And then you want to think of lifting the shoulder up to your chin while still maintaining the structure right here. Right, so you want very little happening. It's really all the movements now happening from the shoulder. So it's being transferred from the body, and then at contact, the shoulders keeps rising this way. You can see how it lengthens it out nicely. So a good kinesthetic feedback for you is to lift the shoulder up to your chin. Now a short hitting zone would look something like this, where we get to about this point. Now look at the level of the hand. See how the racket now starts to come across Nadim's body. That would be an example of a short hitting zone. So what we look for is trying to get the hand, when you work on this, to get about just above shoulder level, where we still have the racket in this position on the right side of the body, right? So that's really what we look for. Where's the hand when the racket starts to come across the body? You want to first get it up here before you have that release. But Nadim, you're going to show us some drills, how people can work on that.
Of course, yes. So the first drill I'd like to spend most time on that is the answer to the question is, the question wasn't quite finished yet. It was, what can I do? Is there a mental note or an exercise that I can do to help me not worry about the incoming pace so much? So if you can give me a ball or two, please. I like to utilize what we already have at our disposal for exercises. So in this case, I like to use the alley. And this alley here basically should represent your hitting zone. In other words, if you do it correctly, by the time the ball leaves your strings, your tip of the racket and almost the entire racket itself should still be inside this alley. If you're crossing most of the racket to the inside here, you already know that you have a short hitting zone, right? And it is very, very important that the structure remains before, during, and after. That way you can deal with fast balls, slow balls, loopy balls, low balls. It doesn't really matter as much. So what I do is, I like to ask my students to play down the alley with that shot. So let me see if I can do this here. I'm going to line up in a half turn. I'm going to self-feed, and then my goal will be to stay inside that alley, and you can see how the tip of the racket stays on the outside. The structure between elbow and wrist hasn't really gone away, and I'm up here by my face, okay? So I'm not breaking left. So let me show you one more time, since I'm in a zone here. Half position, down, and stay inside that alley. That was a little bit bad of a self-feed. Let me do that one more time. Turn, and then I'm trying to stay inside that alley here. I came out just a little bit, but the important part is, even if I come out just a tight bit, you see that the tip of the racket is still on the outside, and that is highly important. Let me show one
If I can just add one more thing to what Nadim's doing. We want to focus on the process here, but also, the strings don't lie, they tell a story. So if you're hidden in the alley, if the ball starts to fade left, it will tell you right away that you're possibly pulling off the shot. So not only you want to keep the racket in the alley, you also want to see if you can keep the ball going straight through both lines, because that will tell a story right away. It means that your racket's pulling off if you're missing to the left.
Right, if I forgot to say that, that is absolutely the point of this exercise. I can hit into that alley on the other side of the net. Thanks for getting me on that one. And let me show you really quickly what it looks like when I don't do this correctly, okay? And then obviously I won't be able to hit the other side of the net inside the alley. So if I pull across my body really quick, which is exactly what happens when players start to overhit or shorten their swing zone, that's exactly what's going to happen. If I try to go cross court, a lot of balls are going to land in the net or too far wide. So utilize this exercise here, try to keep the racket inside that alley and keep the ball inside that alley, and the same thing holds true for the backhand as well.
Yeah, just so some closing points here. Remember that floating soft ball, often we think we're going to crush that, but it is a difficult shot because it's in and out of your strike zone. It doesn't give you any pace to work with, and also if you have a short hitting zone, you're most likely going to catch the ball early and end up missing.